You know, this used to be a hell of a good country. I can't understand what's going on with it.
Man, everybody got chicken, that's what happened. Hey, we can't even get into, like, a second-rate hotel. I mean, a second-rate motel, you dig? They think we're gonna cut their throat or something, man. Like, they're scared, man.
Oh, they're not scared of you. They're scared of what you represent to them.
Hey, man. All we represent to them, man, is somebody who needs a haircut.
Oh, no. What you represent to them is freedom.
What the hell's wrong with freedom, man? That's what it's all about.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what it's all about, all right. But talking about it and being it, that's two different things. I mean, it's real hard to be free when you are bought and sold in the marketplace. Of course, don't ever tell anybody that they're not free, because then they're going to get real busy killing and maiming to prove to you that they are. Oh, yeah, they're going to talk to you and talk to you and talk to you about individual freedom. But they see a free individual, it's going to scare them.
No, well, don't make them running scared.
No, it makes them dangerous. Swamp.
You're right, yeah.
Swamp.
Swamp. Swamp.
Swamp. Well, you may have seen him in a lot of movies prior to seeing him in that movie, but that was the film that made the mark for Jack Nicholson, one of the main subjects of tonight's program. The one and only movie program for Central California. It's Take Two on Public Radio KCBX, and back from his extended stint in New York City. It's film aficionado beyond compare, Bob Whiteford. Bob, great to have you back.
Well, it's great to be back, and it's wonderful to be sharing space here with our main man in the booth, Hank, who never gets enough credit, and across the aisle from me, the czar of film on the Central Coast, the incomparable gentleman Jim Dee. It's great to be back.
Great to have you back. Although Catherine McDonald and I had a great time here, and we'll be integrating Catherine back into the show.
She's terrific.
Yeah, so we had some great shows while you were gone. Great to have you back. The entire staff will be here on Take Two, filing in and out week after week, Mondays at 6:30.
Gosh, a lot happened while I was gone. We lost James Coburn, Eddie Bracken. Oh, my.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that was all discussed in great detail. And tonight we're talking about, well, a man, the dean of American actors, I guess, on this day.
Dean or
what would you call it? The deacon, the reigning king of actors, perhaps. Jack Nicholson.
And I think what prompted us, I know what prompted us to do this, is there's a little bit of pre-Oscar buzz this year. Of course, here comes the onslaught of the holiday films. We have the new Lord of the Rings next week, and the whole glut of films will be coming out. Included amongst them is a film called About Schmidt, and it stars Jack Nicholson. There's already a bit of a buzz that he may have an Oscar nomination up his sleeve for this one. Interestingly, there's a couple of actors who are of the old school and of the current school, both Jack Nicholson and Michael Caine. There's a buzz about both of them getting an Oscar nod for Best Actor. Michael Caine starring in a film called The Quiet American that's getting a nice, great review. So, hey, the old guys are in the forefront, and Jack Nicholson, About Schmidt, is opening in a number of cities this coming Friday. It'll expand in January, and there is Oscar buzz.
Wow, just think about this, folks. Nicholson's film career goes back 44 years. I mean, he didn't just appear with Easy Rider. He'd actually been around for a long time. 1958's Cry Baby Killer, a film produced by Gene Corman, brother of Roger Corman, and that kind of set the template for the next decade for Nicholson. Did a lot of films for Roger Corman. You might remember him from The Terror, a film that he also directed in part, along with Roger Corman in part, along with Francis Ford Coppola in part, along with Monty Hellman in part. But that's the whole Corman AIP scene at that time, and Nicholson was right in there. He was also in The Raven with Boris Karloff and Peter Lorre. He did a number of bike films before Easy Rider. One of my favorites, one of my personal favorites, was his part as the poet in Hell's Angels on Wheels with special technical advisor Sonny Barger. You also did, what was that other one he did?
Well, he did a lot of television work. We're just focusing on some of these early films, but he did a lot of television stints in the early days.
And he did Psych Out, produced by Dick Clark, playing Stoney.
Yeah, and a good double bill with The Trip, which he wasn't in, but he wrote it.
Correct.
And it had Peter Fonda.
And Dennis Hopper.
Bruce Dern.
And Bruce Dern was in Psych Out as well. And these guys are all, especially at this time in their careers, they were interlinked quite a bit. Nicholson also wrote the screenplay to the Monkees movie Head.
Yeah.
And, the show was kind of irreverent. The movie was downright subversive. I mean, anything with Victor Mature and Tor Johnson.
And Frank Zappa.
Had to be and was. It's a wonderfully bizarre slice of irreverence, 1960s cinema. And then, his friendship with Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper paid off when Rip Torn, who originally was slated to play George, the alcoholic lawyer, who Hopper and Fonda hook up with in Easy Rider, he dropped out due to creative differences with Dennis Hopper or something of that sort. And who's there but their buddy Jack Nicholson, and that's it. He's on his way.
Yeah, he's on his way. Here's a notable performance which you've probably seen a few years earlier. It's it's called one of the cheapest films ever made, or it was made in 2 days or something like that.
3 days and 2 nights.
There we go. The original Little Shop of Horrors, and Jack Nicholson, very young Jack Nicholson, appears as the dental patient who loves to go to the dentist. Hank?
Most people don't like to go to the dentist, but I rather enjoy it myself, don't you? I mean, there's a real feeling of growth, of progress when that old drill goes in. I mean, I'd almost rather go to the dentist than anywhere, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Now, no Novocaine. It dulls the senses.
This is gonna hurt you more than it is me.
Oh, goody, goody, here it comes. Oh, my God, don't stop now!
Well, I made a lot of holes, and now I gotta fill it up with this here silver stuff.
Well, aren't you gonna pull any?
Well,
Oh, go on.
And the guy pulling his teeth is the immortal Jonathan Hayes, who was in a lot of Roger Corman films as well. In fact, this one directed by Corman.
Yeah, he always had the scarf on. Of course, the original Little Shop of Horrors, not to be confused with the remake with Steve Martin, which turned into a musical. But this is the down and dirty original, real ultra cheap version. That's great.
And this is the one that won America's hearts.
Yeah, feed me. I'm hungry. I love it. So there's lots of films out there you can see early Nicholson, and especially those early Roger Corman flicks where he's with Boris Karloff. I mean, he was with some great people like Vincent Price, Boris Karloff, but again, they were making those low-budget Edgar Allan Poe features and for American International Pictures, and cutting his teeth, learning all the aspects of the business.
You know what's interesting, too, is he did a couple of Westerns for Monty Hellman, The Shooting and Ride the Whirlwind. And again, it's the Corman-style film. they got an idea for 2 movies, and when they're making one, they start making the other. The shooting with Warren Oates is a great, almost like an avant-garde art film. And it has Nicholson, Warren Oates, Will Hutchins is in it, and Millie Perkins, who I saw from your notes was the maid of honor at his wedding to Sandra Knight back in 1962. So it's like you see this connection with Nicholson. He's got his friends and people he hangs with, Warren Beatty, and I'm sure we'll talk about the films they did later on. But
yeah, I forgot about the Warren Beatty, Reds, and
The Fortune. I mean, wow.
I'm jumping ahead of myself because we're still back in the late 60s right now.
Yeah. But, I mean, this is the thing about Nicholson, folks. There's so much going on. I mean, a lot of people these days, or like in the last decade, look at him as the icon. Let's face it, he's an icon now. You see him at the Laker game, at courtside, and is he with Lara Flynn Boyle, or isn't he, or who cares? But I mean, this guy's been around a long time, and he's worked with so many different interesting people, and he's maintained relationships with them all through the years. I mean, it's just fascinating. And he's an intensely private man as well, which I respect.
Yeah, and it's going over when I was looking at some of his films today, Bob, it's to be that angry man who's quietly angry. I mean, in our next classic clip from 5 Easy Pieces, you know the one I'm talking about, but he's the ultimate American, because he prides himself on his patriotism. At the beginning of the last clip from Easy Rider, he says, what happened to this country, and talking about issues of freedom and so on. And we move on to 5 Easy Pieces, which did that come right after Easy Rider, pretty much? Or
I believe he was in On a Clear Day You Can See Forever in between, but his part in that was actually cut down to virtually nothing. In a sense, 5 Easy Pieces is the beginning of the next phase of his career that Easy Rider opened the door to. And, I mean, we've talked about this film many times on this show. This is one of the greatest examples of the small American film in perhaps the greatest time of American films, which is the early 70s. It's probably the only thing that was any good that came out of the early 70s, believe me. But that being said, American films then were the best they've ever been, and he was right. He was the tip of the spear. He was right there. And this film is a great example of that.
And his anger was so valid. He was quite, as he will be angry in this next clip, just asking why. Why can't you budge a little bit? Why does everything have to be cut in stone? Here's the amazing scene from 5 Easy Pieces.
I'd like a plain omelet, no potatoes, tomatoes instead, a cup of coffee, and toast.
No substitution.
What do you mean, you don't have any tomatoes?
Only what's on the menu. You can have a number 2, a plain omelet. It comes with cottage fries and rolls.
Now, I know what it comes with, but it's not what I want.
Well, I'll come back when you make up your mind.
Wait a minute. I have made up my mind. I'd like a plain omelet, no potatoes on the plate, a cup of coffee, and a side order of wheat toast.
I'm sorry, we don't have any side orders of toast. I'll give you an English muffin or a coffee roll.
What do you mean you don't make side orders of toast? You make sandwiches, don't you?
Would you like to talk to the manager?
Hey, Mac.
Shut up. You've got bread and a toaster of some kind?
I don't make the rules.
Okay, I'll make it as easy for you as I can. I'd like an omelet, plain, and a chicken salad sandwich on wheat toast. No mayonnaise, no butter, no lettuce, and a cup of coffee.
A number 2, chicken salad sand. Hold the butter, the lettuce, the mayonnaise, and a cup of coffee. Anything else?
Yeah, now all you have to do is hold the chicken, bring me the toast, give me a check for the chicken salad sandwich, and you haven't broken any rules.
You want me to hold the chicken, huh?
I want you to hold it between your knees.
You see that sign, sir? Yes, you all have to leave. I'm not taking any more of your smartness and sarcasm.
You see this sign?
Fantastic that you could figure that all out and lie that down on her so you could come up with a way to get your toast. Fantastic.
Yeah, well, I didn't get it, did I?
No, but it was very clever.
Ah.
And it was. And what riveting cinema. I mean, it's no matter how many times we play it, it still has an impact. It's just amazing stuff.
Well, what I think is interesting about Nicholson in the scene is it sounds like the waitress is she's not into it at all, but he's being very calm. He says, okay, here's a way I can get my toast. He was even willing to go around the long way around to get the toast. And it's that beating his head against the wall that finally, the everyman breaks against those odds.
And what a fascinating film that is. I mean, here's a guy who's a concert pianist. He runs away from a life of privilege to work in the oil fields outside of Bakersfield. And, of course, here I am telling the whole story. But it's a fascinating film. And, folks, if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor. Check it out. I think it was his second Best Actor nomination. His first nomination was an Easy Rider, Best Supporting Actor. And, this is the ushering in of a whole new segment of film, and he's right there. I mean, the next film he did, Carnal Knowledge, a classic.
Yeah, if you haven't seen that, that gets really, it doesn't pull any punches.
It cuts right to the bone. These are not feel-good films. Folks, if you're into the feel-good film, don't check these out. These are films that really get deep into the human condition. They challenge you. And this is where Nicholson he's an actor now. Mm-hmm. He's really learning. He's learned his chops with Roger Corman, all his bike movies, the exploitation years, and now he's taken the lessons learned to another level. And that's what's interesting about Nicholson. You can see the growth as he goes. And Five Easy Pieces, Carnal Knowledge, King of Marvin Gardens, all amazing films. He did A Safe Place with Henry Jaglom, who he first met while making Psych Out. Jaglom was in that. He was in the scene where he's on LSD trying to cut his hand off with the chainsaw.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was Henry Jaglom.
Henry.
I had no idea. Henry, what are you doing?
You mentioned, Bob, too, there's that quintessential Jack Nicholson performance, the man against the authority. But you look at King of Marvin Gardens, which was also directed by Bob Rafelson, I believe, the director of Five Easy Pieces. Completely different character for Jack. He's a late-night disc jockey, and he's not your typical Jack Nicholson persona in that film.
Very unassertive. Bruce Dern is kind of the dreamer.
Yes.
Ellen Burstyn, who's won a couple of Academy Awards, is marvelous, is kind of like a slightly mentally ill wife of Dern. Rafelson, and again, Nicholson's connection to him goes back to the Monkees movie, Head. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, we see that pattern again, and it's... King of Marvin Gardens is a wonderful film, just to juxtapose against the anger. He's subdued, he's kind of beaten, he's very almost meek in this.
Yes.
And again, not a feel-good film. It's got just an air of depression and melancholy going throughout the whole film.
Yeah, but I tend to turn it around, Bob, simply because Five Easy Pieces, despite it not being a feel-good film, I remember when I first saw that film, came to the end, and I went, no, it can't end here. I can't believe it's ending here. But how refreshing and how it made me feel good that they didn't have some neatly tied up ending. I was astonished. I was going, this can't be, but at the same time, I was pretty exhilarated by the fact that this film did what it did.
And in retrospect, we have the luxury of hindsight. Here it is 30 years later. These films play much better because they didn't take the easy way out, because they leave you with endings where your jaw kind of drops, and you want your hero to do the right thing, and he doesn't, like human beings do. human beings don't always do the right thing. And, the next film he did, which in my opinion is like my personal favorite, which is The Last Detail.
Yeah.
What a great movie this was. Man, oh man.
That was another one where I expected a different ending, and it didn't end the way I thought it would. And amazing character study, directed by Hal Ashby, who also did Harold and Maude and Bound for Glory, and he did a great job with that, and no cop-outs in that film whatsoever.
None. I mean, Badass Badusky was, that's another great character, and I think he got nominated for that as well.
Amazing. And
I would use some of the dialogue, but it's all pretty salty.
And shortly after that, Last Detail was in 1973 for Nicholson. The next film, 1974, was Chinatown, considered to be a perfect film. That's one of those ones where they say you pull out a scene, it's like a Mozart symphony where you pull out some notes and the whole thing collapses, and every scene is needed, and it's just a wonderful tapestry, truly a classic American film.
Absolutely.
In fact, let's just bounce ahead a little bit. We go the following year. He's on a roll, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where he won something like 9 Academy Awards. Didn't Jack win an Oscar?
He finally breaks through. He's been nominated. Last Detail, he was nominated again, and then and Chinatown, he's nominated. And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, he finally breaks through with the big win.
Wow. We're a little bit out of order, but here's a clip from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. There's a disclaimer. We may have a snippet of a profane word in this, but bear with us. Here's Randall P. McMurphy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Last time we were discussing Mr. Harding and the problem with his wife, and I think we were making a lot of progress. So who would like to begin today? Mr. McMurphy?
Yeah, I've been thinking about what you said about, getting things off your chest. And, well, there's a couple of things that I'd like to get off my chest.
Well, that's very good, Mr. McMurphy. Go ahead.
Okay. Today, as you may or may not know, it doesn't matter, is the opening of the World Series. What I'd like to suggest is that we change the work detail tonight so that we can watch the ball game.
Well, Mr. McMurphy, what you're asking is that we change a very carefully worked out schedule.
A little change never hurt, huh? A little variety.
Well, it's not necessarily true, Mr. McMurphy. You know, some men on the ward take a long, long time to get used to the schedule. Change it now, and they might find it very disturbing.
Oh, fuck the schedule. I mean, they can go back to the schedule after the series. I'm talking about the World Series, Nurse Reggie. Huh?
Well, anyway, this is no way to proceed about this. How would it be if we had a vote and let majority rule?
Great. Let's vote on her.
So, all those in favor, raise your hands.
Okay, guys, come on. Put your hands up. What's the matter with you? You want to watch the World Series? Come on, get your hands up to do you some good, to get some exercise, putting your arms up in the air. That's it. Come on, let's... What is this crap? I mean, I watch the series, I haven't missed the series in years, even in the cooler. When I'm in the cooler, they run it in there, they have a riot. What's the matter with you guys? Come on, be good Americans.
Well, Mr. McMurphy, I only count 3 votes, and that's not enough to change ward policy. Sorry.
Wow. Wow.
Can't change ward policy.
No, there's that brick wall again.
And we know what he does with that brick wall. He throws it out the window eventually.
And once again, a film with a tough subject, with not a pretty ending. In a way, yes, but in a way, no. And then here's a extremely popular film, nominated for a gazillion Oscars, and once again, it shows the films of today, I think, lack that courage, that ability or willingness to go where these films went back in the early 70s.
You know, it reminds me of a story I had read recently, and it's a little off the subject. John Milius was at this party with these young filmmakers, and they were talking to him about making films in the 70s, and he asked them a question: what do you guys want to do when you make your movies? And they replied, we want to make lots of money and get lots of women. And they said, what did you want to do? He said, we wanted to get lots of women and we wanted to make great films. There's your difference. Summed up in a nutshell.
Wow. So the women factor was always in there.
Oh, it's a constant. But in those days, they wanted to make great films. And it shows.
Yeah, you just wonder about directors or filmmakers or writers that are writing something to snag an Academy Award. I really don't think they do this, but the award, the reward, is the film itself and its longevity. Here we are, like you said, 30 years later, playing snippets from films that play just as well today as they did 30 years ago.
Gosh, it's hard to believe One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is 26, 27 years old.
It is hard to believe.
Stunning.
Well, we're a little bit out of order, but it was the year before, 1974, the year before One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, that Jack Nicholson teamed up with his pal Roman Polanski and made one of the ultimate film noirs, which was almost a reinvention of the film noir, in the fact that it wasn't the dark black and whites and shadowy aspects of those films, but we were in sun-drenched Southern California, but still that film noir feel it permeates this film.
And it also stars the late, great director John Huston, who at that time, Jack was involved with his daughter Angelica for many years.
He was with Angelica Huston for something like 17 years, they said. So, well, Jack was monogamous at least for a little while there.
And, and we know his friendship with Roman Polanski. When Polanski got in trouble, who'd he turn to? Jack.
Yep, yeah. Well, why don't we hear the great clip from, actually, Chinatown has so many great clips, but here's Jack Nicholson as J.J. Gittes, and he's talking to John Huston, who is Noah Cross, one of the most vile villains on the screen from Chinatown.
What does it mean?
That you killed Hollis Mulray. Right here. In that pond. You drowned him. And you left these. Coroner's report shows Mulray had salt water in his lungs.
Hollis was always fascinated by tide pools. You know what he used to say?
I haven't the faintest idea.
That's where life begins. Sloughs, tide pools. When we first come out here, he figured if you dumped water into the desert sand and let it percolate down to the bedrock, it'd stay there instead of evaporate the way it does most reservoirs. You only lose 20% instead of 70 or 80. He made this city.
And that's what you were going to do in the valley.
That's what I am doing. The bond issue passes Tuesday, there'll be $8 million to build an aqueduct and a reservoir. I'm doing it.
Going to be a lot of irate citizens when they find out that they're paying for water that they're not going to get.
Oh, that's all taken care of. See, Mr. Gittes, either you bring the water to L.A., or you bring L.A. to the water.
How are you going to do that?
By incorporating the valley into the city. Simple as that.
How much are you worth?
I've no idea. How much do you want?
No, I just want to know what you're worth. Over 10 million?
Oh, my, yes.
Why are you doing it? How much better can you eat? What can you buy that you can't already afford?
The future, Mr. Gittes. The future.
You know what's great about that, Bob? The genius of that script, and of course, Jack Nicholson talking to this ultimately powerful figure and evil figures. That's the question I would want to ask. I know lots of rich people today. I'd love to ask that question. You know, what more do you want? What more can you buy that you already have? Great question.
That's Nicholson again, picking up the mantle for every man.
Yeah. Yeah. You're listening to the movie program on Public Radio, KCBX San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara counties. It's Bob Whiteford across the aisle from me in the KCBX screening room. And we can just segue right on through. We're going to open up the phone calls in the phones in a little bit. You can weigh in on what you'd like to talk about regarding Jack Nicholson. But we've got more to listen to here on the program. It was, well, let's go over some of the other films that from Cuckoo's Nest, we went to his collaboration with Warren Beatty in The Fortune. And, you know, one of my favorite films of his, of course, I was a big Michelangelo Antonioni fan after Blow Up, but here's Jack Nicholson in The Passenger. I like that film a lot. It's been
what
a long
an
time.
Interesting film. I mean, he switches places with who? Ian Holm, I think it is.
As a gun runner.
Right.
And he gets involved in this intrigue, and he's with Maria Schneider, who was in Last Tango in Paris.
I think it's the only movie she ever made, if I'm not mistaken.
Other than Last Tango in Paris?
Yeah.
Wow.
This one and that one. Wow.
Yeah, well, obviously it plays like a foreign film. Michelangelo Antonioni, a great Italian director, but here's Jack Nicholson working with this Italian master, and it's a fascinating film. It kind of meanders, but that's sort of the nature of the film.
And you know, what I like about it, Jim, is here's a guy, he's been nominated like 5 times in a row, then he wins an Academy Award, and then at this point, it's like he can do whatever he wants. Hollywood's at his feet, and then he moves off in this direction.
Mm-hmm.
The Fortune with Warren Beatty, Stockard Channing's first film. That's something completely off the beaten track for him. And The Passenger, which is it's like an art house film. If you know, I don't like to categorize it as such, but it's a fascinating film. I mean, there's a lot of areas in that film where you just hear like flies buzzing around. He's staring out a mud hut window, and to think he's doing that.
Yes.
And then he's doing his part in Tommy as the singing doctor.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing in the fact that he was able to do this, but in interviews that I've read with Jack Nicholson, he's so well read. He's a cinemaphile himself, a cinephile, in the fact that he knows film, he knows the inner workings of film. I would assume he was a fan of lots of classic foreign films. He's extremely well read, and he knows his film stuff. So here he is working with Michelangelo Antonioni. What an opportunity.
And you know, he's also directed films as well. I mean, we know him as a screenwriter. He directed a film in the 70s called Drive, he said, which was maybe one of the quintessential campus unrest films with Bruce Dern and Karen Black. He also directed
Going South.
Exactly, which I knew you've been chomping at the bit to talk about, and we got to get it in there.
Well, if you rent Going South, it's a crack up. I love the character that Nicholson plays, but the opening sequence, I shouldn't go on. Just rent the film if you just want to get through the opening credits. It's a crack up. I don't know if you remember the opening sequence.
I do.
Okay.
And you know, it's also a film that established John Belushi as a movie star.
That's right.
And that helped him get his part in oh God, was it
Continental Divide
or Animal House? And you know, I mean, boy, he was a very small, memorable part in that. And you know, he was in The Last Tycoon as well, because he played that one scene. It's just one scene where he plays the union organizer, and it's him and De Niro facing off.
Yeah, very young Robert De Niro.
Exactly. And also that year he faces off with Brando in the kind of controversial misfire Missouri breaks.
Yeah, that was 1976, it says here. But yeah, here he is, again, the Oscar winner, able to do what he wants. He chooses to be in a film with Marlon.
And Marlon spends half his time with Russell Means trying to sort out the American Indian mess. You know, it's like making a film is just it's, you know, just something I've got to do. I'm not particularly interested in this film.
Well, it was 1978 was Going South, where he was directing, and it was shortly thereafter that he connected up with Stanley Kubrick.
The classic, The Shining.
Which, when it first came out, was panned. Well, again, like any Kubrick film, it comes out and there's its detractors and its admirers. But it was sort of split on this one. I think still, The Shining, like some of these other films we talked about, holds up extremely well. I think maybe you see things now that you didn't see when it first came out in 1980. And they talk about here, even in the notes, they talk about Jack's over-the-top performance, but I think in line with the character, where he's drying out, he's an alcoholic, he's got writer's block, he's a writer, and then he's getting cabin fever up in this remote hotel, the Overlook Hotel.
And he's got a troubled relationship with his wife and his young son.
Yeah, and to top it off, the place is haunted, so...
Just for the heck of it, we'll make the place haunted as well. But you know what's interesting, Jim? I think with this role in particular, he goes from being an actor's actor, now he's an icon. Mm-hmm. I mean, how many times have we heard people, quoting like, "Here's Johnny," when he chops his way into America's hearts when he tries to kill Shelley Duvall. It's suddenly now you're seeing him at the Laker game, and his things have changed.
Yes.
It's taken a turn.
Yeah, apparently the "Here's Johnny" line was improvised. Of course, Kubrick, I think, gives you a little leeway, but after the 90th take, I mean, you can probably improvise. Jack was probably really good at that. We're going to play a clip from The Shining, but I want to preempt this by saying if you get the DVD of The Shining, there is a making of, and it has lots of good Nicholson footage, and with Kubrick talking with Nicholson on developing the film and the character. So there's not many of the Kubrick films have any behind-the-scenes things, but The Shining does. So if you're interested in The Shining, check out the DVD. There's a making of The Shining and lots of great behind-the-scenes Jack Nicholson stuff. Here's Jack Nicholson in The Shining.
What do they call you around here, Jeevesy?
Grady, sir. Delbert Grady.
Grady?
Yes, sir.
Delbert Grady.
That's right, sir.
Mr. Grady, haven't I seen you somewhere before?
Why, no, sir. I don't believe so. Aha. It's coming off now, sir.
Mr. Grady, weren't you once the caretaker here?
Why, no, sir. I don't believe so.
You, married man, are you, Mr. Grady?
Yes, sir. I have a wife and 2 daughters, sir.
And, where are they now?
Oh, they're somewhere around. I'm not quite sure at the moment, sir.
Mr. Grady, you were the caretaker here. I recognize you. I saw your picture in the newspapers. You, chopped your wife and daughter up into little bits. And, then you blew your brains out.
That's strange, sir. I don't have any recollection of that at all.
Mr. Grady, you were the caretaker here.
I'm sorry to differ with you, sir. But you are the caretaker. You've always been the caretaker.
Of course, it's great to watch a movie on the radio, but the facial expressions and the pacing of that scene is, despite it being in this rather bright and white and red bathroom in the Overlook, it's real creepy. It's there's something in the just under the surface that's real creepy.
And you can just hear those faint bits of madness starting, the seeds of madness starting to take, hold in old Jack there. He's getting ready to sharpen up his axe.
Yeah. Well, Bob and I are talking, and during these clips, we're saying we could have had maybe 3 shows on Jack Nicholson, and we can just go over some of the films that he appeared in after The Shining. Of course, he won an Oscar for Terms of Endearment. He played Charlie Partana in Prizzi's Honor, which is a very interesting film. He read the script. He didn't know how to take the script. He went to John Huston, who directed it, and Huston cleared it all up and said, "Jack, this is a comedy." And he thought, okay, now I get it. So, but Prizzi's Honor, where he had that, he did the thing with the mouth. He kind of altered his appearance. He was in Heartburn with Meryl Streep, I believe. Was she in that?
I might also mention he was in Reds playing Eugene O'Neill with Warren Beatty. Warren Beatty's epic film about the Russian Revolution.
Yeah, I think that was about a year before. Yeah, around Terms of Endearment, just before that. The Witches of Eastwick, where he plays Satan himself, directed by George Miller, who did the Road Warrior films.
Great typecasting.
Yeah. Ironweed, also with Meryl Streep again. He had a bit in Broadcast News. He made $60 million appearing in Batman because he had part of the profits, I believe, or maybe his action figure or something. The sequel to Chinatown, The Two Jakes, which he also directed.
With Harvey Keitel.
Mm-hmm. A Few Good Men. Of course, he's very quotable from that, even though he has a very small role. Hoffa, Wolf, and The Crossing Guard is one of the more recent films. That was directed by Sean Penn, along with The Pledge.
Right, and As Good as It Gets, which I believe he won an Academy Award for as well.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes on and on. I think that was James Bridges that directed him.
That's
and
right.
That, as well as Terms of Endearment. Again, that connection.
Yes.
And, folks, if you haven't seen The Pledge, the film he did with Sean Penn last year or the year before, check it out. Great film.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, Bob. I have to see that. And we're making the full circle talking about Jack Nicholson because his new film is opening in some major cities this coming Friday. It's called About Schmidt. And our jumping off point here was there is a buzz about Jack Nicholson once again getting an Oscar nomination for his acting performance in this new film just coming out in the next week or so. So let's open up the phone lines. You're listening to the movie program on Public Radio, KCBX. Take Two. It's 549-8855 or 1-800-549-8855, and we're talking about Jack.
It's simply Jack, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, you don't need to hear anymore. There's another film listed on here aside from, in addition to this About Schmidt film, I think he does have another film either in the works or in the can. I'm sorry I didn't bring that. It wasn't included in this.
And we can't forget Mars Attacks, of course.
Oh, that's right.
With
Mars
his dual role.
If we have time, we'll play something from Mars Attacks. Our guilty pleasure, right, Bob?
You got it.
Good evening. You're on Take Two. Could you give us your name, where you're calling from?
Calling from Santa Barbara, California.
Hi.
Hi.
I didn't get your name.
Program.
What was your name again?
Zeb Nora.
Hi, Zeb.
Hi, Zeb.
Zeb, Z-E-B.
Great.
You mentioned Jack getting an Academy Award for his most recent Academy Award for, now I forget the name of the movie.
As Good as It Gets?
Yes, As Good as It Gets. And while he certainly did a great job in that film, he was up against Robert Duvall that year for his film about a Southern preacher.
Oh, The Apostle.
The Apostle, yes. And I have to say, I thought that was the superior performance, much as I enjoyed Jack's work. Incredible film.
Yeah, my approach on the Oscars, I usually get disappointed if they're nominated. I wish they could give Oscars to all 5 because usually the 5 nominated performances are worthy of the Oscar. But Robert Duvall was great.
I just mentioned it because anybody who hasn't seen it might want to check it out. You also mentioned Chinatown as being bright and sun-filled, and that being unusual for noir. One of the best noirs I know of is a film called Ace in the Hole, also called The Big Carnival.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a film set in the desert and is about as noir as it can get, even though each scene seems to be just flooded with 120-degree heat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Billy Wilder classic.
Yeah, right, exactly, which failed miserably upon its original release, but is certainly worth a look in retrospect.
And it's interesting because I think that film is more popular today. His cynical view of the media. It was his follow-up to Sunset Boulevard, or what came, and that film is great. I mean, folks, if you haven't seen Ace in the Hole, go check it out. It's
sometimes also called The Big Carnival.
Exactly. Thank you.
My
That's
pleasure.
a great movie.
Enjoy your show.
Thanks for the call. It's 549-8855 or 1-800-549-8855, and we are talking about Jack Nicholson tonight, the career that still seems to be going strong. Good evening. You're on Take Two.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hi, this is Sean in Lewis.
Hi, Sean.
Hiya.
Hi. One little Jackism, a little snippet. I don't want to read too much into it, but a couple years ago during the election, I had the occasion to review some list of political contributions.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to some of the Hollywood folks, you're required to list your occupation.
Right.
And, you have your actors and directors and these sorts of things, but Jack always has a little cachet, and he refers to himself as entertainer. That's his
Here on our biography, they say his nickname is Mulholland Man. So there you go. But that's good. Entertainer.
Entertainer. I like that, Sean.
Yeah. So he's got that cachet, and for a guy who's not very physically attractive, he's got a certain sex appeal to him, and what can you say? He's Jack.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, he's an icon now, Sean. He's Jack, like Frank is Sinatra. Jack is Jack.
Yep.
And you can always see him courtside at the Laker game.
Absolutely. He's got his own gravitational field. So
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Brilliant. That's brilliant.
All right.
All right, guys. Have a good evening.
Thanks for the
Thank you,
call.
Sean.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good evening. You're on Take Two. Hi.
Hi, me?
You.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Kevin. And you were mentioning some movies before, and I just wanted to... I came in late, so I just want to make sure you mentioned Blood and Wine.
Now, that's another Bob Rafelson film, correct, with Michael Caine?
Yeah, with Michael Caine. I think Jennifer Lopez, too, wasn't she in that?
Yes.
That's correct.
And that was... the year that came out, Siskel and Ebert had their year-end show, If We Pick the Oscars.
Uh-huh.
And at the end of the show, the last thing they do is one that they don't like, pick a nomination that they didn't like. And what they didn't like was the nomination the movie with Helen Hunt.
Okay.
They said he shouldn't have been nominated for that movie, and he should have been nominated for Blood and Wine.
Wow.
Which is
at the same
interesting
year.
because Blood and Wine did no business at the box office at all. It fell off the radar really
totally.
fast.
If not for that Siskel and Ebert show, I never would have even heard about it.
I'll tell you, I saw it by accident. A screener of it kind of crossed my path, and I was blown away by that film.
Yeah.
Him and Michael Caine were absolutely amazing.
I was just going to say that. The interplay between the tension between the two of them was just incredible.
A great film.
Yep.
Blood and Wine.
Enjoy your show, guys.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
I knew the callers would help out on this one. They'd fill in the dots.
Well,
and Blood and Wine is a good pick.
As you said, what a rich and huge career. 44 years for Jack Nicholson, and we probably have missed a number of things here and there as far as, his work and the impact, and amazing, still at it. 549-8855, 1-800-549-8855. You want to talk about Jack Nicholson, and we'll have to do a follow-up show after About Schmidt is released and see what people think. He plays an insurance executive from Omaha in the new film that's coming out this coming Friday in the major cities.
Boy, I was just thinking about Carnal Knowledge, where he was having his scenes with Art Garfunkel, and Sandy, you're a schmuck.
Yeah.
And it's like Garfunkel was really good in that film, I thought. And, he's like the naive womanizer, and Nicholson's the cynical, misogynistic womanizer. And it was written by Jules Pfeiffer. Brilliant stuff.
And Anne Margaret was in it.
Oh, and Candice Bergen.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Wow, powerhouse. Good evening. You're on Take Two. Hello.
Hi, this is James from San Luis Obispo.
James.
How you
Hi,
doing?
James.
Have you guys talked about The Last Detail yet?
A little bit, but let's go a little deeper.
Let's.
Yeah, but what do you think, James?
That's my favorite Jack Nicholson movie.
I concur.
It's as far as buddy pictures go, it's pretty great. And then young Randy Quaid.
Oh, as Meadows? I mean, yeah.
Got to make sure the cheese is melted on your burger.
And you know, I think we should also weigh in for Otis Young too. I mean, he was great as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the scene where Otis Young chews out Nicholson, saying "You're a lifer like me," you know, I mean, that is great cinema. I love that movie. And Michael Moriarty had a small part as the Marine in the lockup.
Yeah.
You see him there?
Yes.
Boy, I mean, there's a guy learning his chops.
And the best prop that Nicholson's ever worked with is the mustache that he had in that movie.
Oh, that's right. He did. That's right.
Thanks, you guys.
Okay, thanks, James.
Bye-bye.
Hi there. You're on take 2.
Hi, this is Chuck in Lompoc.
Hi, Chuck.
Hiya, Chuck.
Hi, I love your show.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Anyways, I wanted to ask you a question. First I'll make a statement. I think Jack Nicholson's father was the president of some movie company, wasn't he? Like American International or something. I think that's how he got tied in.
No, you're talking about James Nicholson, Sam Arkoff's partner.
Yeah, wasn't that his dad?
No. Apparently Nicholson didn't know who his father was.
Okay.
He was raised by his
grandmother.
Yeah, he
Okay,
never
and
knew.
The question I wanted to ask you was, what were some of the earlier films other than Easy Rider that he starred in or was in?
He was in Hell's Angels on Wheels in 1967. He had a small part in Ensign Pulver, the sequel to Mr. Roberts with Robert Walker and Walter Matthau.
Which was his first movie and what year?
1958, Cry Baby Killer.
Wow, I never heard of that.
Yeah, it's an interesting film. J.D., low budget, black and white, exploitation, drive-in kind of a movie. But it's very effective. It runs about 65 minutes.
And how old was he there?
Oh, maybe 22. I think he's maybe around 66 now, possibly.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's been in movies for 44 years.
Wow, that's amazing. I never knew he was... I thought Easy Rider was like one of his first ones.
Yeah, that's the thing. He was toiling in movies for about 10, 11 years before he got his really big break.
Yep.
So the first one was Cry Baby Cry?
Cry Baby Killer.
Cry Baby Killer. I never heard
From
of
1958. Check it out.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe because of that Nicholson name that was how he got in.
Nope, I got to say that's not the case. Nicholson earned his spurs the hard way. He worked for it.
Well, more power to him.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks
Thank
a lot.
you.
Thanks for the call.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hi there. You're on take 2.
Hi, this is Bob in Santa Barbara.
Hiya, Bob.
How you guys doing? I listened to you on my way home after finishing my route, and Jack is he's a class act, and a couple of movies. Now I just got back into the house. I was outside. Did somebody else mention The Last Detail?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
that's okay. We can mention that as many times as you need.
It's a favorite.
I think that's a small movie, but I think it's a good movie.
I agree.
And it's a favorite.
And then another movie I think he was in, I know you two are probably very good at trivia. Was he in Little Shop of Horrors?
Yep, we played a clip from that where he's the willing dental patient, where he just says, just go for it.
The masochist who loves having his teeth pulled.
Yeah, because I mean, as I said, I was driving home, but I'm in and out of the car a little bit, so I don't catch everything that you were saying and talking. I'll just touch on a couple other things. I used to work at a record store, and we had the poster from The Shining, and of course, one way to promote it is we put up the little sign, "Here's Johnny."
There you go.
Perfect.
Icon.
It'll be interesting. I've seen trailers in the theater for the new movie that you both about Smith.
Uh-huh.
And just the trailers, it looks like you got to go see it. And Yeah, and you also mentioned Michael Caine's new movie, The Quiet American, and he thinks it's probably some of his best work. Even though this is Jack's show we're talking about, I just thought I'd mention that to you.
Oh, that's why we brought it up, because the buzz is that both Jack and Michael Caine are possible Oscar contenders. The Quiet American, I saw it at the Toronto Film Festival, and it was one of my favorite films I saw.
And I'll say goodnight to some other people, but the only other thing I got to tell you is I got to feed my dogs, which are Jack Russell Terriers.
Outstanding.
Perfect.
Have a good evening, guys.
Thanks for the call. Good evening. You're on Take Two. Hi.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hiya.
Hey, this is Jim in Aurora Grande.
Hiya, Jim.
Hi. I called last week and was babbling on about Young Frankenstein, which is actually a spoof, not a remake. But this ties into your remake thing as well as Jack Nicholson, and this is The Postman Always Rings Twice.
Yes.
Right.
And it was remade in '81 from a 1946 John Garfield, Lana Turner film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with Jessica Lange.
Jessica Lange in it, right?
Yeah.
And Bob Rafelson directed it.
That association seems to continue. I wonder what Bob Rafelson's doing now, but
That's a good
Jack
question.
and Bob have made some great movies together.
They did, yeah. And Angelica Houston had a role in it as a lion tamer.
Wow, I don't remember
wow.
that. Wow.
Holy smokes.
A little Angelica Houston thrown in there in the mix too. Since we were talking about her, she came up a little bit tonight too.
Wow.
That's right.
Yeah.
And she was also in Pritzi's Honor as well.
Right.
Oh, yes.
With them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they have actually worked together as well as had a relationship together there for a while.
Yeah. Gosh, that's fascinating. I've got to go back and re-see this now.
Yeah.
I forgot she was in it as
I've
well.
only seen it once myself. It was long ago, and I've forgotten all the details about it. But
Well, I remember the scene between Jack and Jessica Lange on the table in the dining room.
Yep.
It was pretty, very stimulating.
Well, in your conversation about remakes last time, and Jim, you were saying that some films just shouldn't be remade. In this little book that I have, it says the first statement, the first sentence says, "Why remake the James M. Cain story if you aren't passionately engaged by the material?" So this guy's kind of critical of the remake. But I'd like to see both back to back and compare and contrast the two of them.
Yeah.
Good point.
Well, thanks a lot.
Thanks for the call.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, I think we have time for one more call. Good evening. You're on Take Two.
Hello?
Hi there.
Hello? Hey, this is 999.
Hi, 999.
Crazy.
Crazy. You know who I am. Bob.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, 999. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
All right.
Hey, I just wanted to say thank you for educating us on Jack memorabilia movies and all of that good stuff and all the other shows that you guys do.
Oh,
well, thanks.
Our pleasure.
Hey, 999, do you have a favorite Nicholson flick?
Which is a V-Swick.
Oh, there you go. All right.
Such a horny little devil.
Now, they talk about his performance in The Shining being over the top, but let's talk. Witches of Eastwick is definitely over the top, but fun.
Yeah,
it's fun. He's an amazing, talented actor who can create something out of nothing.
Yeah,
the best ones can, and he's right at the top, and he hasn't lost any of his chops.
You're right. You guys have a great, safe holiday.
Oh, you too, and thanks for the call.
Bye.
Take care.
Well, Bob, here we are again with great calls, a great subject, and I think we pulled it off.
I think we did. Boy, callers, you were wonderful tonight, all of you. Thank you so much.
And
this was great.
If only, maybe we just shortchanged Jack Nicholson because, again, we hit the classics, but there was so much more. We were just saying, what a rich career. But, again, we'll see the latest Jack Nicholson in theaters within the next month or so. About Schmidt is the new Jack Nicholson film.
And I think we'll be talking about him some more then.
Thank you for listening to Take Two on Public Radio KCBX, San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara counties. Bob, I will see you next week.
And folks, it's great being back. Thanks, callers. You were wonderful. And thank you, Hank and Jim. It's a gas being back. We'll catch you next week.